A while back, I made a video titled Which Persona game should you play first? In that video, I introduced you to Atlas's Persona games to figure out which one of these are the most beginner-friendly Persona games to play, as they are one of my personal favorite game series ever. While I put out some worthy contenders outside of the Persona series as well, like Metaphor Fantasio and Shin Megami Tensei 5, the ultimate conclusion is that Persona 5 Royal is still the most beginner-friendly game. It is the best game to play first. One of the reasons for it is because of how many mechanics that you would get introduced in the game that it made Persona 5 Royal a very easy game to play, that it trivializes the difficulty altogether. These mechanics range to multiple forms, but one of the most prominent ones are Confidant abilities. But Confidant abilities in itself ranges from good to bad as well, as they vary across all of the Confidants in the game. So in this video, I'm going to rank all of these Confidant abilities in a tier list, from F being the most useless ability to S rank being the most useful ability. I'm pretty sure this topic has been done to death already. You can search it up on Google and find some form of tier list already. But I want to give my personal opinions on this. Oh, and also, I will not be ranking the Confidants based on the story of each Confidants. I'm going to purely rank the Confidants based on how good or bad their abilities are. I can appreciate a great story on Confidants, but I'm not really a person to talk about story in general. So let's jump into it. But first, a word from a very useful confidant of mine. It is today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by First 4 Figures. A new wave of Persona 5 FiGGYZ is out right now, featuring Skull, Fox, and Queen. What is FiGGYZ? FiGGYZ is a brand new collectible lineup by First 4 Figures that delivers a small, compact, yet affordable and modular collectible. Rather than the big and expensive figures, they are these small, yet stylish figures that can be placed anywhere you want and can be customized however you want. With its detachable background, you can flip the background for a different artwork, or swap it out to a different one. In fact, there's a low chance to get a rare chase background in the gold, silver, and bronze color. Chances for these backgrounds are low, but with its modular design, FiGGYZ was made to be traded with fellow collectors. There's also a dedicated collector app for FiGGYZ to easily track your collection. As mentioned before, there's a new wave of Persona 5 FiGGYZ released. Featuring in Wave 2 are Skull, Fox, and Queen. More Persona 5 FiGGYZ will eventually be released in the future to complete the Phantom Thieves collection. But for now, we have half of the crew ready. But if you are not interested in Persona 5 FiGGYZ, there are more FiGGYZ for other franchises, such as Sonic, Frieren, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Cowboy Bebop, Banjo-Kazooie, Mega Man X, Metal Gear Solid, Street Fighter 2, and many other notable franchises like Metaphor Fantasio, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, and Persona 3 Reload. So, if FiGGYZ looks interesting to you, check them out at FiGGYZ.com and use my coupon code Izanagi to get a 5% discount on orders above $50. Again, that's code Izanagi at FiGGYZ.com for a 5% discount on orders above $50. Thank you again to First 4 Figures for sponsoring this video. Starting off not so strong with Fool. Fool is not that much of a topic of conversation if we're talking about Confidant abilities, because they both progress through the story and they provide the most basic gameplay features in Persona 5. The increase of Persona stock is a basic feature across all Persona games. There's Shadow Negotiation and Third Eye, which are also basic features of Persona 5, which gets introduced very early into the game. And the last quote-unquote benefit of Fool is bonus EXP for Fusion, which is not a unique ability for Fool as it is a basic feature for all Arcanas. These are mostly listed on Fool as an introduction to these basic features as a tutorial for the players, because Fool is one of the first Confidants that you'll unlock. While these Confidant abilities are useful in general, you can argue that these are not even Confidant abilities to begin with, so their credibility and worth is being questioned. So, Fool goes to a lower middle tier in the C tier. Continuing the story progress Confidant train, we have Magician, which has less overall abilities, excluding the party member Confidant abilities. It is arguably better as an ability and might actually be considered a Confidant ability. Crafting infiltration tools is kinda a basic feature as well. but I would count it as a Confidant ability because of how it is connected to the character of that Confidant. Because Morgana teaches you how to make tools, and the pool expands the higher the Confidant rank is, unlike say Third Eye, where it is just a button feature for one part of the game. Crafting infiltration tools is a valuable feature, which connects to the proficiency social stat, but most importantly, it provides a lot of useful items to be crafted, like lockpicks or treasure traps. However, it should be noted that while these items to be crafted are useful in certain niches, but at a certain point, crafting just became obsolete because the most useful item in the pool will eventually be replaced with Eternal Lockpick, and that the rest of the items are not as good that they don't see real use cases in most general situations. It's going to be a one and done feature up until you don't need more proficiency anymore. But nevertheless, for the moment that the feature is useful, it is pretty useful. I still can't deny that. Oh, and one more thing that the Magician would also give is the ability to steal items on Joker's melee attack, which is neat, but well, it's not something game-changing. So, Magician with the slightly more useful crafting feature gets a C+ tier in the tier list. Next on the list is Priestess, another party member Confidant. I haven't explained before on why I excluded party member Confidant abilities like Follow Up, Harrison Recovery, Endure, Protect, and Persona Awakening into the equation, because I don't really think that these abilities are unique to each Confidants as they are present in all party member Confidants, but also they are more like a package ability for the party members. So just to be clear, party member Confidant abilities won't be put into consideration and won't influence the ranking. So with that out of the way, Priestess's Confidant ability is actually a pretty informative addition, albeit I can't really tell you if they're strong or weak, because Priestess's Confidant abilities revolve around giving you information on an enemy of their stats, skills, resistances, and item drops, and giving you a visual cue whether an attack affinity will land or not. For a new player who wasn't used to the enemy's resistances, this is a godsend, as it decreases the inconveniences of making mistakes in a fight. However, if you dabbled too much into the game just like me, when you started to feel like enemies' resistances became second nature to you, the Priestess might not be as useful as before, because Persona 5 isn't really deep into the combat aspect, and that in-game, you record enemies' stats and resistances as well. Later on, it's not too amazing of an ability, but nevertheless, it's still useful for this visual icon alone when you're about to hit an enemy with an affinity that they block. For this reason only, Priestess got a solid B, as they have a useful ability, but not too game-breaking. And now we have another party member Confidant with Empress, with their unique Confidant ability, Gardening. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want to make it clear that gardening in Persona 5 Royal is actually pretty good, but that is purely because of the results of the gardening. Getting SP recovery items is always great, plus the itemized charge and concentrate ability fills in the gap for party members that do not have access to charge and concentrate. However, I want to focus on how inconvenient gardening is in this game. 1. You have to go all the way to the school's rooftop and meet Haru to do some gardening. The number of clicks to fast travel for gardening is annoying by itself. On the days that you want to do some gardening, you have a chance to not be able to because of rain or snow. But the most prominent thing that makes gardening feels like a missed opportunity is how late it is into the game to get the ability and the amount of options that you are able to choose. Being introduced very late into the game, being the very last new Confidant that you'd get, with only having 2 items to choose from, which were expanded only in Royal, the gardening feature feels completely like an afterthought. Maybe somewhat along the lines of, oh yeah, we haven't put any Confidant abilities for Haru. Let's just slap in gardening that you might not use because other Confidants already did similar things as well. It is also a huge missed opportunity because I do think this feature could be great with more options and if it was introduced way earlier in the game, like around the 2nd or 3rd palace, is probably a good spot for it. And they should introduce more consumables to help with many more features and systems in the game as well. Like for example, a vegetable to remove ailments to help your team ease up on dealing with ailments in general. I feel like Persona 4 Golden and Persona 3 Reload's gardening is handled way better than Persona 5's gardening. As it stands right now, it's cool with the powerful results of the gardening, but I can't shake the feeling that it could have been much better and much more expanded. So because of that, I would rate Empress in the D tier. Next is another party member Confidant, this time with an accompanying ability in the realm of skill cards. Now, if you know anything about me or this channel, you'd know that I highly value any features and systems that touch the persona building part of the game. And skill cards, not only being a part of it, it massively improves the persona building experience. With this ability, you can duplicate any skill cards that you gathered throughout your playthrough for the ease of building your strongest persona. Sometimes, if you have one copy of a skill card or any consumables that you wanted to use, you kinda have this feeling of, what if me using it is a waste of the resource and I won't even get that thing anymore? Well, this Confidant ability completely solves that issue. You want to put a charged skill to a persona, but only have one charged skill card? Well, just talk to Yusuke, and you are free to use that skill card without worry. I'm pretty sure I don't have to explain myself any longer here. Skill cards are great. The fact that you can get to duplicate a skill card per in-game day for free is a really nice feature. So I'm going to put Emperor's skill card duplication to be the first S tier Confidant ability in this tier list. Taking a break off the party member Confidants, we have Hierophant. Now, this is one of the reasons why I don't get gardening from Empress, because half of the rewards that you can get from gardening is basically covered already and introduced way earlier in Hierophant, by having the ability to make coffee and curry for SP recovery. Probably the only downside of Hierophant over Empress is the fact that Hierophant will span a time slot while Empress will not. But beyond that, having a reliable way to recover SP for long palace runs is a straight up great ability to have. And I value it way higher than Empress's gardening because it was introduced way early into the game that it actually matters a lot. The higher the rank is, the more SP you'll get from the consumables as well, making more ranks into the Confidant more worth it as well. So Hierophant gets a nice A tier for me. Alright, next up is another party member Confidant, Lovers. Lovers is really weird to me. On top of the normal party member Confidant abilities, the other Confidant abilities from Lovers is combat related as well, or at least it's activated during some different parts in the combat. One effect is to have a chance to cancel an enemy's attack, while the other is to have an extra chance to succeed in shadow negotiations. See, these are very niche but useful abilities to have. The chance to cancel attack can prove to be very useful in difficult combat situations, while the negotiation ability is a great fail-safe in case a shadow just refuses to negotiate or when you pick the wrong option. Now my problem with these abilities is that these are all chance-based. I think the negotiation ability comes pretty frequently when I play it, but it's less frequent for the cancelling enemy's attack ability. It's also because this only works for normal shadow encounters as well. Bosses don't get affected by it from my understanding, so it definitely loses some points considering that normal encounters are already easy enough to handle. I think it's a powerful ability if it triggers while in battle against elite enemies or enemies way above your level, but other than that, it is a weirdly inconsistent ability to have, both the cancelling enemies attack one and the negotiation part. Lovers get a C tier. Now, this is where things get crazy, because whenever people talk about Confidant abilities, they will automatically think of Chariot's insane Confidant ability, particularly Insta-Kill. See, at first, this is like those standard JRPG mechanics that skips the tedium of fighting turn-based battles over and over again. In Metaphor Fantasio, for example, it's basically just defeating enemies in the overworld combat. But in Persona 5 Royal, this is so overpowered, it's not even funny. So let's visualize a normal encounter in Persona 5 Royal. You fight like 3 enemies in a battle, you defeat all of them in an all-out attack, and you get EXP, money, and items from their respective pools. But if you try to negotiate with them, you'd either get money, items, or even that enemy as a persona, no in-betweens. And you'd get no EXP assuming that you cleared the encounter without defeating the enemy. Now let's go back to Insta-Kill. For some reason, as an ability to skip the tedium of turn-based combat, you are guaranteed to get a persona, as well as EXP, money, and items for ramming them. That just doesn't make any sense. Why would it be logical to reward players to skip a part of your game by giving you basically every yield that you'd normally get at once? To me, this doesn't make any sense. It is more logical if by skipping the encounter, you'd only get like a portion of the rewards, like only give you EXP for example, or just money, not everything all at once. It's actually pretty stupid. Oh, and Chariot also has a reduced chance to be detected while dashing. I mean, it's fine, and would probably be somewhat noticeable if Chariot didn't have the other, more glaring ability as their offering. Chariot is so strong, and I believe it is partially the reason why Persona 5 Royal's difficulty balance is so messed up. I hate it. It definitely needs some tweaking. S tier. Okay, continuing to another party member Confidant, Justice feels lackluster. I want you to guess, if you have played Persona 5 Royal before, do you remember what Justice's Confidant ability is? Cause to be honest, I completely forgot until I researched for this video. Justice's Confidant ability is a chance to reveal an enemy's affinities or weaknesses that was not known before. See, with how the enemy works, and the fact that most of the enemies are personas, once you get one of an enemy as a persona, they will reveal all of their affinities instantly for the next enemy of the same persona, making this particular Confidant ability just doesn't work beyond the first fight against that enemy. Also, the fact that it is a random chance, god, I really hate things that don't have a fixed and guaranteed way to trigger some effects. It can just render an otherwise useful ability to be really useless because it didn't trigger when you needed them to be. So, Justice just drops to D tier for me. Next up is Hermit, and I had a difficult time ranking this because Navigator abilities are always unique compared to the others, and honestly, I can just say these abilities are top tier and the ranking would be pretty much done. But again, I want to give you guys my personal opinion towards them, and let's talk about this one by one. So, moral support is the bread and butter of the Navigator role, as they can buff and heal HP or SP. It is a nice addition, albeit not a reliable source for those, so you still need to play with some buffs and healings in your personas. Then, Memento Scan is great to ease up the Memento's dungeon crawling experience. Position Hack is pretty strong as they just turn the tides of battle instantly. Treasure Reboot is cool, but it's whatever. Emergency Shift is cool to have to prevent disadvantages in battle. And finally, Final Guard to shield off the first time you might get a lethal blow. It's actually pretty strong. With all of these abilities, Hermit is actually one of the better Confidant to have leveled, as these abilities are very useful. Now, judging by my previous rant, you should know by now that random chances are god-awful, and Hermit in Persona 5 Royal unfortunately suffers from that. All of these abilities that I have mentioned are triggered at a random chance, so in a tight situation where you might need one, you might actually not get a buff or healing from Futaba. When two party members are knocked out, Emergency Shift might not trigger, leaving you still on two party members alive. You might not get a Memento Scan on the whole single run of Mementos. Being chance-based with no sort of pity/guaranteed system is inherently going to be bad in my book. And unfortunately, Hermit loses a lot of points just because all of the abilities are chance-based. So, while useful, Hermit goes to the B tier, as it gets dragged down by fully being chance-based. Jumping off to the next one, we have a bombshell of a Confidant, as this Confidant basically provides a huge group of very beneficial abilities. Listing of the abilities: Fortune gives bonus social stats gain, which is kinda whatever, but is still a great ability. Increase money gain from battles for a day. Reveals what other Confidant abilities that you'd get from leveling, which is probably the worst benefit to get because the internet exists. Reveal the best responses in a Confidant event to give you the most points for ranking them up. And by far the best benefit to get from Fortune is the effect to trigger a fusion alarm in the Velvet Room. which then you can do any of the Velvet Room shenanigans that is possible. Purely because of the fusion alarm mechanic introduced in Royal, Fortune in my eye skyrockets up the rank as you can get really strong personas from fusion alarm itself, whether by succeeding a fusion, which then prompts you to have skill mutations, or by using it to get better skill cards or equipments, or just fail a fusion to get crazy personas that might actually be useful in your playthrough. Honestly, if you search up on the internet on how people create really strong personas in the game, you'd definitely see some or most people use the fusion alarm tech. So as a confidant that can trigger a fusion alarm on demand, that confidant will be one of the strongest confidants in the game. And this is not to mention the other beneficial abilities that they offer as well. Fortune gets a definite S tier in this tier list. After Persona 4, I envision that every Persona game going forward will have a confidant or social link that is dedicated to this challenge in building a persona with specific requirements. For Persona 5, it's the Strength Arcana. Now, this confidant is related to the Velvet Room and for building personas, but I do think this is not instantly an S tier of a confidant. The ability to fuse multiple personas into one, or group fusion, is a standard feature. It's the same case as Full, as it disguises standard Velvet Room feature as a confidant ability. Same goes for Lockdown too. Probably the only ability from Strength that I would consider a confidant ability is the ability to fuse higher level personas within a certain fee. It's an upgrade with something that you couldn't do normally into a possibility that can snowball into a really strong persona building playstyle. I have a confession to make. I've spent a lot of my in-game money just for this, and yeah, it was worth it. It can be very expensive in the long run, but if it gives me a very strong persona, I will do it again. But while it is a good confidant overall, I still think that it's kinda lacking in something. I think it's more so that this confidant doesn't offer as many abilities as others, so in my personal ranking, I will put it down a rank into the A tier. For a confidant that is unlocked way later due to the social start gate, Hangman is such a disappointment in confidant abilities. To put it very simple and short, this ability offers gun customization, which sounds absolutely awesome on paper, but in terms of execution, it's pretty bad. Because my main gripe toward this feature is that you'll only have one settings for each gun and go with it. In fact, all guns have the same best modification that you don't actually interact with the feature at all. So for those who hasn't used the gun customization feature, you basically have an option to have customization in balancing damage and hit rate. There's a configuration that has low damage but high hit rate, or the opposite, with the highest damage but low hit rate. Or for the other configuration to sacrifice the overall damage output to have the extra effect of inflicting an ailment, which then you can utilize by dealing technical damage with other persona skills. If you're still second guessing on the modification options, the one that gives you the ailment chance is the best one out of all the options, and is basically standard issue to convert your gun into this ailment inflicting tool. I was hoping that the gun customization would actually give more options than this, like for example, this is probably a product of Metaphor's physical element damage system in my mind, but I was hoping that you could customize their damage affinities to way more options, like An's submachine gun dealing wind damage, cause it makes sense since An specializes in fire skill damage that could inflict burn, which then the gun will deal technical damage on the enemies, which is a cool combo to consider. Or another suggestion is to make the gun have like a silver bullet effect, like for example, they would deal increased damage to undead, or in the case of Persona, enemies with the Devil or the Death Arcana, for example. Or heck, you can just add that bullets inflicts debuffs as well, like a defense debuff. You could make a lot more creative ideas with this system, yet we get basically a linear upgrade, as it is only good to get one group of modification. It's just so frustrating that this confidant ability is such a missed opportunity. If the options were more creative than what it is available right now, players will automatically be creative to customize their guns according to their preferred playstyle. I would put this on D tier, but since it still had some good benefits to your gun, Hangman gets a C tier. The Death Confidant in Persona 5 Royal is very popular, mostly due to the character that they attach it to. but it's also partially because the Confidant ability is just very beneficial up to like the mid game. Death's Confidant ability opens the clinic store that sells you consumable items for healing and accessory equipments for bonus effects for your party members. That might not seem like a very powerful ability to have, but the items and accessories that the clinic sold proves to be beneficial in most situations. So obviously, healing items are always great. All party members can use them to get you out of a difficult situation in battle. However, the main star of the clinic is obviously the SP Adhesive 3 accessory. It's a simple accessory that gradually restores SP per turn in combat, making your SP economy in palaces or mementos much more manageable. This is considering that you can get your hands on it relatively early, as you only need rank 5 to buy it. That being said, while this accessory is strong for most of the early to mid game, it unfortunately fell off due to the fact that numerous other features will give you better SP regeneration, like Hierophant for example, as they can restore a lot more SP. So it's more so of an early game power spike to help you on your fresh new journey. The other healing items pretty much got the same effect as well. The more you progress into the game, you'd get better healing skills like Mediarahan or Samarikam that completely heals to full. So unfortunately, while these are helpful benefits, they unfortunately fell off later into the game due to the numerous other better sources for the same effect. So B tier seems like a fitting spot for Death. On my first playthrough, I didn't really level Temperance fast enough to get the effect of the Confidant abilities. And when I tried another playthrough that levels Temperance pretty fast into the game, the differences between the first playthrough and that playthrough is between night and day, because Temperance is probably one of the strongest Confidant in Persona 5. So basically, this Confidant is the Confidant that saves you time. And you know that time is very important in Persona because you have a limited amount of time slots available for one playthrough. Activities that will eat up your time slot can be done without spending time slots for that activity, meaning that you can do anything else and you basically doubled your time slot. This also includes other Confidant ability features as well, such as Magician's Crafting and Hierophant's Cooking Curry or Brewing Coffee. You can also save up time slots by getting a free time slot during school where you can choose to read books or craft or just sleep for a random Confidant related effect. These abilities by itself are already enough to rank Temperance a high enough tier, but the fact that Temperance got one more ability that is better than the other offerings is insane, because Massage opens up the ability to do another activity even after spending time in the metaverse, where you normally can't do. So it's needless to say that removing a lot of these gameplay restrictions is very strong. It can even be considered game-breaking as it breaks the rules of the game itself. So I hope it's not a surprise to you that Temperance gets a very definite S tier in the tier list. Jumping off from one of the best Confidants in the game, we're falling to the definite worst Confidant in the game. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but unfortunately, the Devil is the worst Confidant, both in terms of the content of the Confidant and the Confidant ability itself. But the problem with the story of the Confidant isn't really that bad, it just has one fundamental flaw in my opinion. It's not as bad as the Confidant ability that you'd get from this Confidant. It might be so bad in fact that it made your playthrough worse in a way. So, the Devil's Confidant ability revolves around reducing the security meter on palaces, whether it is an eventual decrease upon triggering specific actions, or that the meter's increase is reduced. See, on paper, this definitely has their benefits, as security meter in palaces is an actual mechanic that can lead you to a disadvantage if you don't play around it. In vanilla Persona 5, maxing out the security meter will eventually kick you out of the palace, which then will waste your infiltration attempt for that day, in which the Devil Confidant comes into play to prevent that from happening. However, as per Persona 5 Royal, they remove the mechanic where they will kick you out of the palace, so maxing out the security meter in Persona 5 will only lead you to a lot more battle encounters, which in a sense is actually more beneficial to max out the security meter as it gives you more EXP to grind. More battle encounters means more EXP for your party, which inherently makes the game easier in the long run. Essentially, this was supposed to be a high risk, high reward situation, where you can live on the edge for more EXP. But since they removed the risk involved, there's no reason to not get the reward. While yes, you can still rank up the devil and max out your security meter, for most of the game it's more beneficial to not rank it up first, which makes devil land at a very special F tier in the tier list. I wanna ask something about this. Do you consciously rank up tower for the confidant ability, or do you rank up tower to get a good Yoshitsune? Tower will always be that arcana that everything it has will always be overshadowed by the existence of Yoshitsune, because, well, Yoshitsune is really strong. But that's not to say Tower's confidant abilities are not good. In fact, they're pretty good. Tower's confidant ability offers a plethora of upgrades and features to Joker's gun. Downshot is great to force an enemy to get knocked down. Bullet Hail is a great ability to chip down an encounter's overall HP to make encounters faster. Warning Shot, increase ammo, increase chance to inflict ailments, which complements Hangman customization, and make the gun pierce resistance. These confidant abilities are great. However, in my opinion, they're not that amazing, because back again, guns in Persona 5 tend to be just a tool to inflict ailments with Hangman's customization, because their overall power when compared to Persona skills aren't really that great to begin with. Guns from the very beginning have always been advertised as a source of damage that inflicts gun damage, a different affinity as normal physical damage. You see a flying enemy, you shoot it down. That's basically it. It was only at the later stage of the game that you'll get gun damage skills for your personas, including Haru getting a gun damage skill as well, which makes guns not really used too much because of how the power gap between these sources of damage are too large. I get that half of the tower confidant abilities are an effort to make guns a viable source of damage again, even to the point where Joker's gun just ignores resistances, but I don't think it's enough to cut it, as Persona skills are just better. I would say Warning Shot, Bullet Hail, and Downshot are the abilities that are better executed as a confidant ability, as they are completely new mechanics that can turn the tides of battle with great expertise. So, Tower's confidant abilities are great, but unfortunately gets dragged down by how weak the gun is as a source of damage compared to Persona skills. Tower gets a B tier in the tier list. Now, this is where the confidant ability game got so much better. Every time I think of a confidant and their abilities, Star will always be the first one to come to mind, because this is basically the blueprint of good confidant abilities and what makes a good confidant ability. Let me explain. Do you know that in other Persona games, you cannot swap in and out party members in battle? In Persona 3, you can only swap party members at the entrance of terrors. Same with Persona 4 in the entrance of a dungeon. For the longest time, the battle system in Persona 5 wouldn't allow you to swap party members in battle as well. The most that you can do is swap party members outside of battle, but the restriction of you having to be in the entrance of a dungeon is removed, so you can do that in the menus. Well, with the Star Confidant, you can actually swap party members in battle. In my opinion, this is not only a decently strong confidant ability, but it's also a well-designed one. Cause in any other JRPGs, you would normally have that ability from the get-go. It's not a very alien feature or mechanic in JRPGs. It's not only that Persona restricts that to a certain degree with Persona 3 and 4. Now with Persona 5, this confidant ability improves it by lifting the arbitrary restrictions by making it a confidant ability, which is such a great idea. This being tied to the confidant that is characterized as the Master Tactician is just a nice touch as well. If you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of this confidant. Other abilities from this confidant are also worthy of a mention as well, such as the improved escape chance, the expansion of follow-up attacks, and the bonus money gain on a quick encounter wipe are such great additions to introduce Master Tactician related benefits into your battle. And to be honest, I don't see a real downside to this pool of confidant abilities. So, Star gets an astounding S tier. Well, this is one of those confidant that I really have no words for. This is the confidant that gives you access to Mementos requests, but that is a standard feature to the game. What it really offers as a confidant is that it gives EXP to party members that are on standby, where they normally wouldn't get EXP, up to fully the same EXP as what the active members got, as well as bonus EXP boosts permanently to everyone. I shouldn't really tell you that EXP is generally one of the most sought after things in a JRPG or any RPG in general, so having more is always welcome. This is good in every way possible. except that EXP will get obsolete at one point, as the EXP cap for Persona 5 Royal isn't crazy up to hundreds, and that Persona 5 Royal is one of those games that doesn't really require too much grinding to begin with. EXP is relatively easy to come up in Persona 5, especially when the security meter system just spawns a lot of enemies while in high security. So while getting more EXP is nice as a Confidant ability, it's not going to be useful for the entire game. I know it's not going to be a problem for most players that don't play Persona 5 like lots of hours in like I did, but I think it still counts. The Moon gets an A tier in the tier list. Out of all the Confidants in Persona 5, I think this is the only one that I completely missed in my first playthrough, because I just didn't realize it exists. But that's more of a problem with me not really exploring a lot of the game and just completely passing on the Confidant. But in terms of the abilities, they're cool but not all that amazing. The Sun is the Confidant that improves the negotiation gameplay, where it can give you a lot more rewards from doing negotiations like money and items, but also has the chance to skip negotiation and also have the ability to negotiate with enemies with higher levels than you, because before, you can't do that. Whether you like the negotiation gameplay or not, I would refer this as a very nice quality of life ability. In combination with other Confidant abilities such as Lover's Crocodile Tears or Tower's Warning Shot, it can make the negotiation gameplay to what seems to be such a hassle, if you think it is that much of a hassle, to basically a breeze. So it's a great Confidant overall, but not as groundbreaking as other Confidant abilities. B tier seems like a sweet spot for the Sun. Yeah, not going to rank this one. We're at the home stretch now, and finishing the list, we have two new Royal Confidant additions with Faith as the first one. Faith might not seem like it, but I think Faith is pretty strong in terms of Confidant abilities. It's a party member Confidant as well, so you'd get the normal party member Confidant staples, but the main takeaway from the Faith Confidant is definitely the tumbling and the grapple hook ability, because this ability can really save you in a pinch. Being ambushed by enemies is probably the worst thing that can happen to you. Not only that the turn order favors the enemies now, you can actually be wiped out very fast if you are unfortunate enough. A lot of Confidant abilities try to mitigate this with numerous abilities, but this particular Confidant ability just prevents that from happening, and instead makes your supposed disadvantage to an advantage, where you instead ambush them. It's really that strong, as it allows you to be reckless in palaces where you should be sneaking around. Furthermore, it also provides you with a long-range ambushing ability with the grappling hook, making the overworld ambushing gameplay of Persona 5 from what is already an easy gameplay to begin with to an even easier hurdle. I swear, you either have to be really bad at the game or that you are trying to be bad for you to get ambushed and fail at the infiltration gameplay with these amounts of palace infiltration techniques. So, all in all, Faith gets an instant S tier in my tier list for how much it made the game a lot easier. Well, speaking of easier, Councillor is the last Confidant that we talk about, and is probably the single most powerful addition to Royal, because all of the Councillor's abilities are very powerful in a different way than Faith. If Faith is the Confidant that improves the infiltration gameplay, Councillor is the Confidant that improves the overall turn-based combat, with multiple powerful abilities to Joker, such as a chance to instantly clear out ailments as you get inflicted by that ailment, a chance to get both charge and concentrate at the start of a battle, and a chance to restore a large amount of SP at the start of a turn. So, needless to say, these are super powerful abilities to have. Instantly clearing status ailments obviously is very strong to keep Joker both alive and be able to fully perform in combat. Charge and concentrate at the start of a battle is very strong since the game's main damage source revolves around buffing your character with buffs and charge and concentrate. So having a chance to cut costs like that and deal a ton of damage right from the get-go is very powerful. And let's not forget that the chance to restore SP is just so useful with how much SP is a very valuable resource in Persona 5 Royal. You can't have enough SP, as it is a resource to cast more spells, and the game revolves around using spells to strike weakness, and then to all-out attack, wipe, and encounter. Having more sources of SP regeneration is definitely a strong ability. I don't know what more to say about this other than that Councillor is probably one of, if not the best Confidant in Persona 5 Royal, purely because of its very beneficial abilities. If there were an SS or S+ tier, I would put Councillor to those tiers. But thinking about it, it is not that crazy good. It's probably on the same level as the other S tiers. So closing this tier list, Councillor gets an S tier.